And thank you all for joining us tonight. It is me. It is the one and only the Cyber Warrior. This is CyberWarriorStudios presents Security Happy Hour. And guess what? We have a great show planned today. No, my partner in crime, Eric Blardo, will not be joining us tonight. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, he is at Hacker Summer Camp enjoying all the festivities of Black Hat and DEF CON. But we still have a great show planned. As y'all know, I ran this shit by myself before he came along, so we're going to do it once again. But stay tuned and we'll be right back. And we're back. What do you know? And with me this evening, I have the one and only Dr. Nicole Fellouris. She is a friend. She is family. She is a neuroscientist. And she does so many amazing things. Thank you for joining me this evening, Nicole.
Thank you for having me. You're always here for the family, you know?
Oh, definitely. And I know it's been hot there. I know you've been doing a lot where you're at.
It's humid. I'm in Southern California. We don't understand humidity very well here. It's very confusing. It's not doing good. No.
But it is great to have you on. So other than that, other than all of the issues and personal issues you've been dealing with, how have you been doing besides all of that?
I've been doing good, and it's the personal. It's of a health nature, and a lot of it has to do with something that's genetic, and I've dealt with it for a while, and it's one of the things that you learn to live with and learn to still do your best each day, but realize that your best every day is going to look a little different.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing is, that's really what it comes down to is doing your best. Your best is going to be different, and that actually goes a lot with what we want to talk about this evening, which is stress. Because sometimes we stress ourselves out, thinking that we're not giving it our all, or we could have done better, or we could have done this, that, and the third. When the reality of it is, some days, it's our best is what we give, and it may not stack up to what we did yesterday or the day before,
and there's
but it's still the best at that time.
That's the thing, is that there's no reason that we should believe that from a stat standpoint, because you look at energy management, okay, and how, especially in our industry, it's very, very nuanced. There's a lot more because you know what, there are late nights. There's things very specific to us that there's nothing you can do about. It's just the very nature of it. So how do you deal? How do you cope and do it in a way that's healthy and benefits your body physiologically and your mental health?
Yeah, and that's huge. And which, by the way, thank you to everybody who has been downloading my new podcast, Walk With Me. I got a lot of compliments from people that I didn't expect to get them from recently. So thank you all who have downloaded it, listened to it, and continue to share it. I just want to throw that out there. If you haven't, head to CyberWarriorStudios.com. You can find the show. Otherwise, though, it is the stress of everything. And it was kind of coincidental that you wanted to talk about this topic, because over the past 2 weeks, I have personally been dealing with a lot of stress that I brought on myself. A lot of things that I started feeling out of my comfort zone and feeling like that imposter syndrome and all that stuff that we talk about mentally that just stresses us out. Yeah. I've been dealing with a lot, and I've literally had the shakes sitting at my desk, just dropped with anxiety and everything else. And so, it's a resiliency factor, something I preach, but at the same time, sometimes it's just overwhelming, and that stress, you just can't handle it.
Well, here's the thing, just like there's toxic positivity, there's toxic resilience. Resilience is relatively finite in that we only have so much, and you only know you're resilient is when you're tested. That's usually through trauma, stress, things of that nature. You only have so much. And so the whole belief system that, you're supposed to push because you're resilient, that doesn't match with the neurochemistry, the physiological limitations. Mind over body will only go so long. And that's just the nature of it.
And that's the thing is, well, and again, to your point of toxic resilience, me as someone who's always picked myself up, always driven on, always found a way to overcome. I was listening to another podcast recently that talked about quit avoiding what makes you uncomfortable. Quit avoiding your fears and your obstacles and all that stuff in your head and face it. Face that negativity, face that obstacle, face what it is. Because until you do, are you truly ever past it? Are you truly ever going to overcome it? And that hit home to me because I pick myself up, I move on, but do I truly? Or is that still there?
Well, you have to identify the collateral damage. Just because you survived something and came out the other end doesn't mean that you're not unscathed.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you're not carrying the weight of damage. So the thing is that you just can't get up and carry on like business as usual. There needs to be a time to process, a time to resolve. And what happens is that when we go for so long without doing the inside work and really identifying and processing, our subconscious has a way of taking over. And we start trying to numb those uncomfortable thoughts. Because our mind is always looking to make peace.
Right.
For there to be resolve, for there to be a homeostasis that is, that's supportable. And through whatever way, whether it be, there's different people have different ways of coping in the maladaptive sense. But the fact of the matter is that the best way to heal is to deal. We have to deal with ourselves.
Right. And I think that's something we avoid a lot. I mean, take myself, for instance. Everybody knows whether it's physical pain or mental pain, I love my beer. And I've used it for all types of issues. When I retired out of the Army, there are certain things that I can and can't do. And I cope with either nicotine, caffeine, or alcohol. I don't necessarily face all of my issues. And I know I should. I know there are things that I should just kind of face head on and kind of meet head on, but your brain doesn't always want to. And it's a matter of, we all cope in different ways, but I think there's a difference between coping and facing.
Right.
And if we don't face it, then you're never going to get past it.
Exactly. So what happens in the brain when we try to start reconciling our trauma, all the stuff that we've been like just loading up inside that we haven't dealt with? The other things like the nicotine, alcohol, food, different people, different things, is maladaptive.
Right.
It makes you so you don't have to deal. And with the brain is always looking for comfort and safety. It's why when we try to do something new, we get nervous. We talk ourselves out of it. But when we push through and get to the other side, it's like, wow. And what happens is the more you do that, the more you start rewriting that synaptic pathway that's associated with the memory related to that, whatever that issue, whatever that trauma, whatever the stress is. And so all of a sudden we start creating a new pathway, a new default behavior.
Yeah, and I think that goes a lot too, with when you look at anything in life, whether it's our careers in cybersecurity or our just general life happenstance, we want to avoid conflict. We want to avoid the stress that we're going to feel. So we try to keep ourselves in comfort situations. And when something happens, and for instance, with cybersecurity, if it's a breach, if it's, oh no, I got to do, my company was hit, or you're a consultant or a pen tester and things didn't go your way, or an analyst that didn't catch a log file, that stress builds up because, your boss or his boss or whatever may cover for you and be like, hey, look, no, it was this, this, and this. But the reality of it is, in your mind, you missed something. you know there was something that it was too overwhelming, you just couldn't face.
Right.
And that stress builds up.
Exactly. And that's why that particular type of stress that is specific to what we do, it needs one of the key ways of managing it or leveraging it, if you will. Because keep in mind that's basically the adrenaline. When you're in there, you're doing instant response or whatever your craft is. And you're in there, you're in it, you're doing your stage on there, but that adrenaline, that fight or flight, that thing is called hyperarousal, hypervigilance, all these different neurochemicals start just go in the whole system. That system needs time to reset. It needs time to come down. That's why it gets so draining and just cognitively difficult when you go from emergency to emergency to emergency to emergency.
Right.
Because your mind doesn't have a chance to reset. There needs to be a come down process.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. And to your point though, there's good stress and bad stress too. Right? You have to stress yourself a little bit. There's always that good sense of it drives you. It gives you the chemicals, the endorphins, the adrenaline that you need to push forward and do what you need to do in your life and in your career. But then there's bad stress. I fucked up. I need to cope. I screwed up. I need to run away. It's that fight or flight instinct of I gotta go. And it's how you handle those two. But in the same sense, I think there's still such a thing as too much good stress. Too much stress of any kind can mess with your head.
Yeah, it is not just does it mess with your head, it rewires your mind. It changes your neurobiology. People who are under constant stress, constant go, they tend to have a larger amygdala, which is a part of the brain that's very much involved in that whole fight or flight. Also, sleep patterns change. All these things our bodies intrinsically need, whether we are willing to realize it in the moment or not. We got to start treating it like just the way an athlete would treat their body. We need to start treating our brains.
Right. And so with that, what's your take on something like meditation and things and yoga and things like that are meant to clear your mind? And I have a twist on this, but I want to hear your take on that first.
So mindfulness is something I firmly believe in. Really, really important. And that's where it brings the mind to conscience. We're staying aware. We're not checking out. We're not, kind of go out there. But we are present. We are here. We are engaged. But what that means is also too, when the moment's over, I just retreat. But I am aware of what's going on. I'm consciously making decisions. And it's really, really important. And that is very healing and therapeutic, even in stressful situations, because you still are maintaining a sense of control.
Right.
It's super, super important. Now, as it goes to meditation, also, we look at breath work. And the type of breath work we can do could just be, sitting at your desk, breathe through the nose. And do that for when you put something on the site, you reset that fight or flight system.
Right.
That parasympathetic nervous system basically gets cueing from your breath. They say, people will feel anxious if they're like holding their breath or, taking very short. That's because it's actually cueing, even if they're under no threat, because it's cueing that part of the nervous system that, hey, we are now in fight or flight. So people feel like anxious for nothing, or we're just so nervous. That's one of the times really, really important watch your breath. Become aware of it and do it. And there are other techniques out there. There's like box breathing. There's different types of meditation. But the whole idea, even of meditation, is that you are in your conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being in the moment in a task, you're in the moment, just in the moment.
Right. And I've heard and here's the funny thing, and I go back to the same podcast. If anybody wants to know what it's called the Norse Way. And this guy is amazing, the guy that hosts it. And he's had a few other co-hosts on along the way. But he started talking about meditation, and so much about meditation I've heard about clear your mind and kind of free yourself. But then he was like, no, don't do that. He goes, you use meditation to find that thing that you can't focus on, that you're trying to focus on, and you figure it out. That's when you focus on and you pinpoint that exact idea, that exact item, that exact purpose, whatever it is that you are so scatterbrained that you can't figure it out. It is at that time you push everything else away and you find that clarity on that one item.
Yes. And that's right there, the clarity. Because when you're in that moment, you're meditating, you are aware of your environment internally.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in a constant career lifestyle that's, constant stress, unless you're checking in with what's going on inside, there's a very good chance that most people are unaware. That's why people will go for years and years on end, and all of a sudden get really sick. It's like, well, where did this come from? It started 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
This stuff doesn't happen overnight. It builds upon itself.
Right. And I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of posts. I've seen a lot of people that are like, I've been healthy all my life. Then all of a sudden I have stage 4 cancer, or I'm,
right.
My liver's failing, or my kidneys are failing, or this, at the other. And it comes back to, they never thought about themselves. And one of the things I've learned is, as much as we always talk about being selfless and doing for others, you have to be selfish. You have to have that thing of caring for yourself.
Right. Here's the thing. How do you give and be able to consistently make an impact in both, your personal, your family, work, your friends, if you're not whole? And the thing is that even with selflessness, that can also be maladaptive. Because people will just, okay, I'm going to just give this to somebody else. I'm going to do this for somebody else, so I don't have to deal with me.
Right. I've seen that. I've actually seen that exact thing where they're so afraid of themselves, of what they've done or who they are or their situation or whatever the case may be, that they choose the selfless acts, which, let's be honest, it is selfish, because you don't want to deal with yourself. You're being selfish because you want to escape who you are.
Right. You're acting out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the action in and of itself might be good, the intention from where it's coming from, this is the thing, the body and the brain know.
Right.
You're doing it not because you really want to be this. I mean, you do want to be a good person, but what you really want to do is not have to deal with what you're avoiding inside. But on top of that, it's very easy to justify not dealing with it because, hey, you're just doing good. But
and so let's talk about that a little bit, though, because we look at cybersecurity. Let's be honest. Some people get into it for the money. I myself initially got into it for helping others. That was my premise. Now, I always tell people, money will come. No matter what you do in life, if you truly love what you're doing, if you truly care about what you're doing, and you consistently do it, money will come. So I did. I always believed that. I wanted to do what was best for companies, people, whatever. But in reality, it still stresses you out, because if you feel like you're not helping somebody, or if you feel like you're not making enough money, or if you feel like you're not getting to where you want to be, that stress is still there. That selfishness part of you is causing stress that you probably shouldn't have.
Right, and that's a self-talk, our thoughts. And looking at a current in cybersecurity, okay, we talk about money. Here's the thing: whatever career somebody chooses, if their whole drive is money, there's no satiation of money. You're never going to hit a point where this is enough. That it's always going to be, I want more, I need more. That's just the nature of it. But when we look at things from a holistic standpoint and take all things into consideration, what our values are, what's most important to us, time with family, all these different things. And then you make a life plan. Is it, so I want to go to cybersecurity. Okay, how? Because fulfillment needs to come from all places.
Right.
You can't just look at your career as your sole place of fulfillment.
No, your fulfillment has to come from within you, though. Your fulfillment and what you want to do. And I'm gonna do it again. I talked about it, in my very first episode of your why. Of your fulfillment comes from knowing your why and being able to handle that and make that your driver. And if you are not fulfilling that purpose, if you are not pushing forward on that why, then you will never be fulfilled. But again, money, as much as I get it, people want to get into IT, cybersecurity, doctorates, whatever for money. I understand the concept and I understand the reasoning why. It is one of the worst drivers because you will never reach the pinnacle of being happy if that is your sole driver.
And cybersecurity especially, there's such, it's not a matter of, okay, well, this is, we need to change the culture. No, unfortunately, there's just, because keep in mind, what is, on the other side of cybersecurity, what are we doing? We are protecting entities, individuals, governments against adversaries, against evil. We can go a little deep, evil, if you will. But in truth, that is the very nature of it. So how do you engage in what essentially is warfare on a daily basis? You have to do it because there's something more to it. It just can't. There are other ways to make money and you make more. Mm-hmm. You really have to. There's just something with us, with our industry. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so hard to get people in. And here's the thing too: if somebody has like a deep interest, but they haven't figured out their why yet, that's okay too. But you gotta take the time, take the moment to understand yourself, understand what really drives you, and why it drives you. And if you don't like what you find inside, you can change it.
Yeah, and that's and knowing that, I think that is one of the biggest stress relievers for a lot of people when they figure out why they do what they do. I think who they are. When you do that self-reflection, when you realize what is driving you, what is making you make the decisions you choose to make internally, it relieves so much stress. Because I think we stress ourselves out because we're like, oh, we got to do this, and this. Well, why? For money. Is that really why you're doing it?
Right.
For some people, yeah. It is. For some people, it is strictly because of money. They want to keep going up, keep making more and more and more and more. But again, you're always going to be stressed out because it's never going to be enough for you. And so, again, for all those in cybersecurity that got into it for the money, not because they enjoy the field, not because they love what they do, but because they just want to make more and more money. Look, hey, more power to you. But I'm just going to tell you, you're probably going to be stressed out the rest of your life. You're not going to find any peace in your life because you're never going to make enough. It's just the nature of the beast. But when it comes to really deciding, is your why your family? Is it, I want to do this for a career. I want to help companies. I want to help people. You can find fulfillment on a day-to-day or even weekly basis of being able to accomplish that. If you feel like you have no purpose in life, you're going to be stressed out your entire life.
Exactly, because you're directionless. And we all need to feel like we're moving forward or making some, we need to define our path.
Oh, I talk about paths. Dr. Nicole, you are preaching my language here. But yeah, it is. It's about, and everybody's is different. Everybody has a different way
Yeah.
of going through life, of finding their path, of walking and just going about their daily business.
Mhm.
But it's still, if you have nowhere to go, if you don't have clear direction. So if you're looking at, even if you're on your journey through life and you're looking at 5 different ways of doing something, you can narrow that down if you know why you want to do what you want to do. You can narrow that down if you have direction. Go north. Okay, we're going to say going north. Let's just go north this way. But if you don't have that North Star, if you don't have that direction, that guide, your stress is going to be through the roof your entire life until you self-reflect on your career, on what you're doing, and how it can benefit you.
Right. And this is how people will go 30, 40 years in a career and one day wake up like, what have I been doing all my life? You don't ever want to live like that.
It's a bad way to live. It's a horrible way to live. I've always known why I do what I do. Doesn't mean I always agree with it or I've agreed with it after the fact, but I still know why I make the decisions I make. But if you look at it, sometimes we look back and go, man, that was a really fucked up reason. I should not have done that. I should not have done it.
Right. And to that
But
point,
then you
though,
change course.
Right. But by checking in, so here's one of the things about being the uncomfortable aspect. What about when I come to terms with myself, there are things I don't like. You are fully capable and empowered and designed to change that aspect of yourself. You want to change your why. That you realize, you know what? Hey, my why is not in line with my values. What really matters to me. And you know what? These things change in time, depending upon where you're at in your career.
Where you're at in your life.
You continually reassess and look at them.
For sure. And your career's going to change. Let's be honest. Not everybody starts out saying, I want to be a manager or I want to lead people. I want to be a security director or a CISO. They sign up and say, I want to be a hacker or I want to defend companies. But then as they get older, as things change, they're like, you know what? I can mentor people better if I was in charge. I can do more if I had a higher role, if I got, this position or that position.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of just wanting hands on keyboard, they want to have more of an impact on their team and on the community. And so that can change. And that's okay. It is okay to gain wisdom and want to spread wisdom.
Exactly. And it's also okay to be in a position where you're like, you know what? I really enjoy the technical aspect. This is really where my gifts, my talent, things I have this innate ability to do, lies in this. You don't have to say, okay, well, here's, if you start here as in SOC, then, your ultimate goal is to be the CISO. No. Everybody's unique and different. And by honoring and for us individually being aware of what is it innate within us.
Right. And that's huge because I've talked about it at some of my previous companies. We talk about it at my current company. There are positions you can get. There are ways you can go about advancing your career that keep you technical, that keep you hands on keyboard, or you may move up a little bit and you're not so much hands on keyboard as a consultant. You're a consultant. You become less hands on keyboard and more. I'm going to consult verbally, but you're not in charge of people. You may mentor, but you're not necessarily in charge of people.
Right.
You become more of a leader. And so things like that are possible. There are companies out there that will never let you move up if you're technical. Let's be honest, they exist. It happens. That's still the nature of the beast. The technical person does not always move up the food chain, and it sucks, but it's the way it is. We can change that internally if we have those conversations. I believe you should have a technical person on the board.
Absolutely.
As an executive, you should have a technical person.
Yeah. Well, it's like, here's the thing. You can be influential and not necessarily be in leadership.
Yes.
It's really, really important because it's not really, okay, well, the only way that I can make a difference is if I'm holding a directive of this and that. No, you know what? You can start, you matter right now.
Mm-hmm.
You can start influencing right now.
It's all about opening your mouth. So many of us are afraid to speak our mind. So many of us are afraid of the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is that important to you, if mentoring, if making a difference is that important to you, consequences be damned, you're going to open your mouth and you're going to say something. If it is not that important to you, you're going to keep your mouth shut.
Right. And the longer that you resist doing what's of value to you and you keep deferring to, you know, or go, essentially what happens is you're going against yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The more internal conflict that's created, the more you put your body physiologically, your mind, everything in a state of, you know, it's going to break. Or we're not meant to live in conflict with ourselves. That eventually it gets to a point where, unless that conflict is resolved, we will break down in one form or another.
You see it. You see bodies break down.
All the
And
time.
people wonder, well, what caused this? What caused the organs to fail? What caused all these other mental issues? What caused the suicide or the depression or the whatever you want to, whatever happens? And the reality of it is we never resolved that internal conflict of what I want to happen, but never did anything about. You just battled internally the entire time. And your mind and your body cannot take that abuse. It just can't. You either have to leave and find somewhere where you feel like people will listen to you, or you say something where you're at. And if you get fired, you get fired. Such is life. It sucks. No one wants to go through it, but you have to speak your mind because that stress will kill you.
Oh, absolutely.
It will kill you.
And that kind of stress, when we're not living our authentic life, when we're not like doing what we know is right, it also affects our personal relationships.
Right.
It affects them. And also to keep in mind that we are modeling behavior whether we realize it or not. That whether it be our children watching, our, you know, whoever, people see us.
Right.
And it's important. Be the kind of person that you want to look up to. And if you're not, then you know what? That's okay because, hey, you know what? You have everything within yourself to change. And change takes time, but it is absolutely possible when you're committed to it.
Definitely. And I ain't gonna say it. But so yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do to make that happen, right? After so many days, things become habitual. Right. After so many days, things, you know, change for us, whether it's mentally, you know, physiologically or what have you. And so in our careers, if we're looking to do something, if we feel like we're overwhelmed, if we feel like we're stressed, if we feel like we're doing too much or whatever, the first thing you need to change in your career and in your job is learn to say no.
Right.
We are so worried about getting fired or about not getting a raise or about whatever because we refuse to say no.
And part of that is when we're talking about mindfulness, and this is something everybody could start doing right now, becoming aware. We're aware of our surroundings, but we're not aware of our internal climate. What's going on with us? And the whole idea is that we all understand the concept of path of least resistance, right?
Right.
When we know our values, when we know our goals, when we know what matters to us, we're going to say, hey, you know what? What's it going to take for me to get from A to B? And the fact of the matter is that the more stuff that we take on that is not relative or helpful to getting us to point B, to the things that we really value, really resonates, it weighs us down. But by having clarity at the get-go and knowing, okay, I'm going to basically check, like it's kind of like our own heuristics, if you will. You know, that will help empower you to say no.
Right. And that's the big thing is knowing your worth, knowing what you're capable of, and knowing your bandwidth. If you are so afraid to say no, then you need to leave that career, or not the career necessarily, but that job.
Right,
Because if you're afraid by saying no,
mhm.
you're going to lose your job at that company, go find another company. Because you need to be with a company that you feel comfortable with, telling them no, telling them, look, I just can't take this on right now. I don't have that bandwidth. I don't have that time. You've already given me X amount of projects, and it's already, at my limit of what I can handle. Let me finish these first before I take something else on.
Exactly.
If you
They
do
don't
that.
accept that is a huge red flag.
Yep. And honestly, if a company is going to fire you for telling them no because you are overwhelmed, or because you already have 10 other things on your plate and they want you to
Mhm.
do number 11, you don't want to be with them anyways. Go
No.
find someone that's going to understand your boundaries, understand your bandwidth, and understand the fact that, look, motherfucker, either you need to hire more people or I'm done. I'm not going to stress myself over this bullshit.
Right, and that's a big thing right here. Exploitation in the workplace in terms of talent. Is like, so yeah, you know what? They will give you a whole, like, literally run you at your max and try to keep adding more. But again, going back, you are living mindfully
Yes.
and aware of the moment. You're gonna catch the BS. You're not gonna be as easily, the whole go with the flow kind of thing. The next thing you're like, oh my god, I'm taking on all this stuff. No. Because here's the fact of the matter is that no one can do it all. No one.
What? Lies? Yes, I can. No, I can't. I fucking
That's
no.
bullshit. It's like the thing is that you want to do something and do it well.
And that's the big thing. So I want to touch on that, but I do want to bring this up. John Good says this, and he's right. Don't be afraid to take PTO or find ways to disconnect from tech or cybersecurity outside of work. Find hobbies and other things to do instead of trying to stay connected 24/7. John, I'm gonna be honest, I'm horrible at this. As everybody knows, I have like 5 shows, a podcast, everything else. I'm very bad at it, but I am writing a book and doing some other things. So I try. The 5 kids keep me grounded, and my wife makes me step away anyways. But he makes a point in that it's okay to have a passion for cybersecurity. And I was a big proponent of, this should be your passion, your love. This should be all about you. But then as I got older and I got wiser, I learned, if you don't step away, you're going to burn your ass out. You're not going to want to do it, and you're going to be horrible at your job.
Right. And what's the whole idea? You want to be effective. This is your passion. So to protect that, you have to take care of your mind and body. You have to sleep.
Yep.
You have to have some structure where you can, and be consistent about it.
Yes.
Like, if first thing in the morning, get outside. If you've been in the knock all night, get outside. You need to get sunlight. That helps.
I sit outside on my deck every morning. Granted, it's having a cigarette and drinking some coffee, but still, I get out on my deck every morning.
Because literally that wakes the body up, the mind up. It's all these cueing systems. It's basically like it's like your boot eye and eye.
Yeah. Right? It's like, you know what? Hey, Init D, come on, let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have one here from KevTech. At the end of the day, you're only human. Managers need to have empathy for employees too. No one here is a machine. Fuck you, Kevin. One day I will be a robot. My wife yells at me every time I tell her that, but it's going to happen. But yeah, it's true that you have to. You have to reboot. You have to kind of wake up and just restart and realize that it's a new day. You can make new mistakes. Nothing is permanent. The only thing permanent in life is death. And you can move on. You can make changes and do better or do worse, depending on the choices you make that day.
Right. But if you're just going from one day to the next, just numb and unaware, you're not going to consciously have that moment of clarity that you can make that decision. And as far as, like, in terms of the type of people who are in cybersecurity, there are certain talents. There's certain people with innate gifts. With that, though, comes some potential for, there's a negative side to genius, right?
ADHD, OCD, mental health. I can name quite a few negative
Right.
things you
do. Trust me. And so people who are in that leadership position, they need to be also be aware. And they should, when you want to bring out the best in your people, then this structure, this culture needs to be in line with that.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is that, you know what? Only we have 24 hours in a day. And of those 24 hours, we only have so many of those hours that we're going to be on our A game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Look, I'll be honest with you. My A game comes first thing in the morning. You catch me by like 9, 10 o'clock. I'm like, I know I got work to do and I really am going to get it done. And it gets done. But it's a struggle. Like I have found, which is odd. If I stay up all night and go down to my computer, and I mean no sleep for like 24 hours, go down to my computer at like 4 o'clock in the morning, I will knock out like 15 tasks and they be on point. But if I sleep at a normal time and wake up at, I'm kind of like, you know what, I'll get out of bed eventually and get down to my desk and I'll make it. I hope I'll make it. But it's that for me, but I can't, it's not sustainable. So I've tried to change that and I'm working on changing that. But that if I do not sleep, it is not sustainable.
It's not, it's your body will break down. And well, no, I'm a night person. Here's the deal. When it comes to circadian rhythms, which is where every aspect by every organ, everything is in line with this, okay? We talk about cortisol. So what's supposed to happen is that when you go to bed at night, the sleep that you get before 12 a.m. is going to be of more value and more restorative than what you get if you're going to bed after 12 a.m. Even if you are sleeping 8 hours. Because remember, quality is really, really important. You can have quantity, but if you're not getting quality sleep, not getting restorative sleep, that all will start adding up.
And it'll beat on your stress. You'll be stressed out all day.
You're all the mechanisms that you have, going back to resilience, remember, it's finite.
Yeah. I got one up here. Hold up. Let me find it. Someone, hold up. Gabriel put it up. Let me find it. And there we go. I put it up earlier. Our levels of resilience are not a reserve tank. You are being resilient prior to you recognizing you are doing it. Spot on. You don't realize you're being resilient. You don't realize what's really going on. You just are. But again,
it's after the fact. Then it's like
it's like this is your resiliency limit. When you get to here, you're no longer resilient. Your head is like, fuck you, homie. You need to step the fuck away and go do something else.
And what will happen if you don't listen to those? There's also these physiological and situational warning signs. If you don't start listening and being aware of those and acknowledging them and taking that step back, that's when the body eventually it does break down.
Right.
It can't go on forever, ever, and not rest. We need rest in order to be our best.
So let me ask you a question about that, though. Because I've heard several different instances, like you've got kids need 9 to 10 hours. You've got other people need 6 to 8 or 7 to 8. I have heard that sleep happens essentially in hour and a half increments, 90-minute increments when your body hits REM. So if you sleep for 90 minutes as a nap, not full-blown sleep, but as a nap, then okay. You should be able to go for a few hours, but you're not getting a full night's sleep. If you sleep for 3, it's a little better, but you're still not getting a full night's sleep. It's 6. You should really be targeting 6 hours or 9 hours.
6 to 8 hours. Because there's 4 stages of sleep.
If you hit 7.5, that's still good, because that 6-hour mark and that 7.5-hour mark works. And again, this is just something I heard, and that's why I'm asking you. If you hit 740, 750, or 8, that's actually breaking up that cycle of REM or whatever it is. There's a point where you're at REM, then you're not at REM, then you're at REM, then you're not at REM. And so at that between 7.5 and 8, you're not at that point where you technically should be trying to wake up again with your alarm. That 8-hour mark is too far into, I should have woke up 30 minutes ago instead of now.
Well, let's take a step back. So there's 4 stages of sleep. And in terms of quantity, quality overrides that. You could be in bed for 7 hours, but you slept so poorly, as we call it fragmented sleep, that you're exhausted. That a lot of the pain is not, okay, yes, you got to get the sleep, but you got to get good sleep. And focusing on that end, again, that coming down process. Because what happens is that while we sleep, all these neurological, neurochemical, physiological mechanisms are running in place. Our brain is so active. Our prefrontal cortex, not so much, but other parts. It's a time of reconciliation.
Right.
Okay? And then when it's time to wake up, our cortisol levels start rising. Cortisol is an intrinsic part of our ability to perform, to manage stress. It's when it gets out of control, when the body's making it more than it's supposed to, that's when it becomes maladaptive.
Right.
It becomes destructive instead of supportive.
So there's all these chemicals in the brain and the body that are technically helpful. You look at adrenaline, you look at endorphins, you look at cortisol and dopamine and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
At what point does cortisol become destructive?
Very good. So when cortisol is being consistently, chronic stress, when it's being continually, cued. So cortisol levels are supposed to go up and go down, go up and go down. But when you keep on re-engaging, as we have this essentially a chronic stress, what happens? Okay, that cortisol level, it keeps going up, and it changes the body's the homeostatic controls. And what we'll find is that about 24 to 48 hours, with that reset doesn't occur, then that's when some of the maladaptive stuff starts, like the gaining weight in the lower abdomen, or this is for both men and women. Cortisol is a big, big player in that. That's why it's so important that cybersecurity practitioners put an emphasis in a lifestyle that is supportive of not only a career, but also protective. Walking. So you're not into the gym, that's okay. When we walk, when we get outside, and that's a key thing right there, getting outside. There are chemicals that get released when we're outside, when we're in nature, that will not happen elsewhere.
Right. And I found that actually recently. Lo and behold, I have a wood line behind my house, as people have seen. I don't give a damn. And I walk through there, and I just stand out there. I stand in the trees. I stand out in nature. I stand in the sun and everything else. And even internally, I find that brings me back to center. I find that brings me back to almost like a homeostasis
Yeah,
of
it's grounding.
clarity.
That's actually what it's your grounding.
I love that term. Yes,
Well,
exactly. Me and you know what, Nick? Me and you are going to talk off air one time about some of the things. There are things I ain't going to get into on here, but yes, I completely understand where you're coming from, and we can discuss some concepts behind that. But yeah, I do. I find being outside has always, and that's why I've always loved the summer. As much as I love hoodie weather, don't get me wrong. Let me wear a hoodie year round. I'll be happy. But being outside in the summer, working, moving logs,
mhm.
just being out there and doing things. I actually get a workout because I don't go to a gym and I haven't fixed my garage to do yoga or anything else recently. Um, but being outside and doing all that just gives me that it's a stress reliever. It relieves any anger I have,
Mhm.
and I'm out in nature. I'm out there regardless of what I'm doing, just enjoying life. And to me, I have been so consumed by computers for so long and technology for so long that I finally feel like I have that center. I have that ability to finally find myself.
And also too, so if somebody is at a place in their life where their physicality, hey, they're like, what, that's wonderful, that's great, but I'm not in shape to go throw some logs around. That's okay. Start where you are. Just getting outside for 30 minutes every day and walking, just walk outside. It's the duration, it's being outside, and it's the motion.
And what I think what people forget is we are a race of beings. We are humans that for years and years, decades and centuries, that's what we did was lived in nature. And so that the vitamin D, the sunlight, the moon, the stars, all that is what brought us um kind of that clarity and that center of who we were. And after technology advanced and we had houses and air conditioning and heat and computers and phones and all this stuff that kept us inside, we got away from that. And so I think our bodies, though they try to adjust, I don't think they ever will adjust to being inside
Yeah.
24/7.
We're basically hard coded for certain things. You can't hack it because that's just the way it is, but by being aware and saying, yeah, I gotta, especially people who code, they're always crazy hours inside. All right, you gotta take a break in the morning, get outside.
Right.
And when we share about the chemistry underlying these things, I think as individuals that appreciate science and appreciate analytics, it's a lot easier to put in place a new behavior when you know why it's so important, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Because you know the mechanics behind it, it's much easier to adopt.
Right. Right. And whether or not you're um into theology in the different religions or faiths or a scientist, it's still scientifically, theologically, through your faith, whatever, being outside and being in nature and being in the sun has still always been one of those things that I think every single person can agree with, is that sunlight matters.
Yes.
Being out in nature matters because it is something that it heals you. Now, I'm not saying go out, get a sunburn, and go get skin cancer.
That's
not what I'm saying.
No. Here's the thing, Derek. So, what I keep saying first thing in the morning is that there's a specific type of sun that you have to get out there.
Is it UV or U? No, it's not UV.
It's
UV?
No, I think it's UVB. I gotta double check that, but that's what synthesizes serotonin.
Yeah.
So I keep saying, before 10 a.m. And what's so
Mm-hmm.
So
for sure, and that's whenever I think that's when I mean, you figure I'm outside during the summer at like 6 o'clock in the morning, when the sun's coming up, and it's refreshing, and it's that I know what I'm going to do today. I know what I'm going to conquer. I know what I'm going to accomplish. It doesn't always work. Look, shit does not always work the way you plan it.
Right? Things go sideways. But you can handle that a lot better when you are grounded, when your mind is clear. Your stress response is going to be one that is reflective of the situation.
Griffin Infosec said UVB. This is what we thought. UVB. Funny enough, if you take care of bearded dragons or any reptile, they need UV, UVB, and I think UVA is the other one. Rays. So yeah, that's how I knew the term. It is not because I actually researched the type of rays the sun gives off. It is just because I have a bearded dragon.
Bearded dragon serotonin. But yeah, so that's how, like, with your D3, your serotonin, all that synthesis, and then the 30 minutes of walking. Again, movement doesn't need to be fast movement. It has to be movement. You need that 30-minute time frame to activate the endorphin release.
Yeah, and I would say if you have, let's say, for instance, you are in a company and you have a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, or 8:30, 8:45, whatever. If you do not have to actively be looking at a screen for that meeting, meaning your company doesn't care about camera, and if they do, screw it, hold it up to your face. I don't care. Take that meeting during a walk. Or take that as you're walking, because that, even though you're not gaining clarity, you're not kind of blanking out, you're getting the movement, you're getting the sun.
Yeah.
And guess what? A lot of companies will be okay with that. If they're not, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because what you don't want to be in a situation where you're actively or even passively multitasking, because it actually puts stress on those mechanisms. And
multitasking a lie. We all do it, but it's a lie. We're not actually doing it. And it's, even though we try, and your brain, and Nicole, me and you have talked on many of occasions, you know, I try to multitask, but the reality of it is your brain can only do, you can only focus on one thing at a time. Now, whether you're jumping from task to task to task to task, completely different story. You're not actually multitasking. You're doing one thing at a time. Problem is, you're not doing it to the best of your ability, because you're allowing your mind to wander and do other things. So if you are multitasking, I'm gonna be honest, you're not being very efficient, nor are you actually doing it at 100%. So you have to learn to focus.
Focused effort allows us to accomplish something in significantly less time than if we're trying to multitask. So I already put out there that multitasking puts extreme stress on the brain and on all these different mechanisms. Doing one thing at a time, do it well, and get it done. Also, things you don't like doing. Things that are, how do you deal with that? Do that first thing in the morning. That's where you have, in terms of like,
did that.
Get it done. Because you, trust me, your body, physically, you will feel relief. You'll also feel energy. And
I'll be honest with you, Nicole. I took this past week, and I was stressing over this report I had to do, and I kept trying to do it while doing other things and working on other clients and doing a bunch of other shit that I could not focus on it, and it wasn't getting done. And I was like, it'll be done by this day. And I was at a point where I was like, fuck. And then I woke up at like 7 o'clock in the morning and said, screw it. And I wrote the entire thing. No, it's been Q8 and we've been going through it for the past few days, but that's besides the point. The fact of the matter is, I actually did the first draft because I woke up early and decided to knock it out. Yeah, you're not wrong. Shit you don't want to do is best done first thing in the morning when you first come in and sit at your desk.
Yeah. Literally, it just, and again, too, if you find yourself procrastinating on things, that's a really good sign that you need to do a check-in internally. Find out why you're procrastinating on it.
I procrastinate. Hold up. I procrastinate for a living. I wait till the last minute. I'm like, you know what? When's this due? All right, I'll do it 10 minutes before I have to hand it in. I've been doing that my entire life. It's just who I am.
I need it. I'm a person, But here's the thing: what are we chemically? What are we drawing upon within ourselves that we basically are saying, "Hey, you know what? I need the pressure. I need I need all that stuff in order for me to activate to perform a task." Well, frankly, how does that? You keep activating those systems, and the thing is that you become addicted, or you adjust to that feeling.
Oh, I'm addicted to the procrastination and that stress. I got told by a teacher when I was in high school I'm the king of bullshit. Solely because literally in high school, my senior year, got called the king of bullshit because she saw me do my presentation that was due that day, like 2 periods before in the computer room. And I went up there and she could not fail me. She could not give me less than a B. She gave me a damn A because I did everything she asked and was damn good at it. And she goes, "You were the king of bullshit." I said, "Yes, I know." And I walked away because she knew I didn't do any research other than 2 periods before it had to be turned in.
Right.
So
let's real quick on that kind of, okay, that was high school, but it was in university. That kind of not behaviors, but that's not tenable.
no, that fucked me over in university. That fucked me over in my college. I tried doing that for my speaking class in college. My teacher was not happy with me. She said, "I know you didn't do shit, so you got a C." And I said, "Fuck." But I did.
Yeah, right? It's like you can only half-ass it. But here's the thing. Your mind, your body catches up to you. You may have like ridden the ride of adrenaline, but your mind knows that you could have done a much better job.
Oh, yeah. I know. And that's the thing. And look, for everybody out there listening, whether you're listening on podcast or you're watching the show on recording or you're here live, understand. Many of us in this career field have things like OCD, ADHD, ADD, you name it. We have some type of disorder that does not allow us to fully fucking concentrate on one task at any given time. You have to find a way to cope and find a way to be able to do it. To Dr. Nicole's point here, doing it first thing in the morning is one of the best ways to do it. You sit down, you knock out things that you may not actually want to do because it's out of your comfort zone. Take it from me. I have had to do things that are out of my comfort zone, and first thing in the morning when you sit down at your desk is the best time to do it. And Kevin, quit being an asshole right now in chat. I love you, but quit doing it. But yes, so on that fact, stress is huge. Stress is going to bother us our entire careers. Everything you do is going to cause stress. Everything. Good stress, bad stress, it's going to happen. The goal is to have more good stress than bad stress, but find times when you're not stressed at all. Dr. Nicole, it is the top of the hour. Before I sign off, please give us some final words.
Oh gosh. Like, you just brought up how so many of us in the industry, you have these certain disorder, or there's a predisposition to certain disorders. But what we don't sometimes may not realize is that there's. I'll use myself as an example. My ADD isn't my weakness. I'm going to choose to see it as my superpower. Because I have this, I'm able to do other things. That our minds, our brilliance is a collection of all these different aspects of us. And by fully realizing our potential, by doing the work, looking inside, seeing where we're at internally, that we can use these things that somebody may say, "Oh, well, that's a disadvantage." No, that's an advantage. That's my superpower.
Dr. Nicole, you had to say all those terms, man. Look, I love you. And I actually brought that up last episode when we talked to Alex, and that is utilizing ADHD, ADD, and any other thing that people want to consider a disability to your advantage, because you can use it to your advantage. You can do things that other people cannot. Yes, certain tasks may be harder, but at the same time, the way you comprehend information, the way the information flows through your brain allows you to do more and do things sometimes a hell of a lot better. So
Yes,
please, if you
yes.
have
It's
any
also
type
that
of
part right there.
disorder,
A hell of a lot better, because you are literally hardwired to be that analytical mind, the ability to process the information, to parse, all this stuff. Well, guess what? That ADD, that's what drives it. That ability. And again, the way our brains are wired, both intrinsically and how that changes through lifestyle and environment, we can make it for better, for worse.
right?
We gotta start treating ourselves the way an athlete treats their body.
Yeah.
Your brain needs time to rest. It needs time to reset.
Wait, I'm supposed to reset my brain?
Yeah.
No, you're not wrong. And at the end of the day, I will say this. Having that reset, having the ability to find that clarity, having that ability to kind of look intrinsically on yourself, and understand what's going on internally with you, is huge. If you're not doing that, please start stepping away, start meditating, start doing all these things. I don't care. Take 30 minutes during the day, like Dr. Nicole here said, and go for a walk. Go walk through the woods, go walk on your street, get the sunlight, get the endorphins flowing. And if you can't walk, yeah, like I said, stand outside. Go stand in the middle of somewhere and just fucking stand there and be like, you know what? I'm going to stand right the fuck here. And take it in. Ground yourself.
Mindful. Exactly.
Feel it.
Mindful. Practice that mindfulness. Be aware. There's a difference between flow and dissociation, and which also checking out. They're not the same things. We got to take care of our brains and take care of our bodies.
Yes. Very much so. Very much so. But saying that, look, Dr. Nicole, it's been great having you on here, as always, sister. I love having you on. You always have so much information to share. And honestly, if I could go for 3 hours, I would, but my wife might kill me. So I'm going to cut you off here. Look, it's been great having you on. Look, for anybody who hasn't checked out Walk With Me, please go do so. It is my new podcast. For anybody who hasn't gone to CyberWarriorStudios.com, that is where you can find the podcast and all the other shows I do, merchandise, and all the ways you can support the channel. Otherwise, look, it's been great having everybody on. For everybody that's at DEF CON, you know what? I hope you all had fun at Hacker Summer Camp, because I couldn't be there this week, unfortunately. But I still love you all. You're still family, and I'm still here for you. So take care. Have a great weekend, and I will see you all in the next one.
Okay, be safe.